You're listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Friday Night SmackDown from May 19th, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the SmackDown Review. Of course, the main topic that we are going to be talking about right here on the SmackDown Review is, of course, the Bloodline. And it looks like the Bloodline is crumbling from within as we head towards Night of Champions next Saturday in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, in which we will be seeing Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defending their undisputed tag team championships against Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa instead of the Usos. So we are going to be talking about all that and much more right here on the SmackDown Review. Overall thoughts on SmackDown, really, nothing really special happened on the show, to be quite honest with you. Really, the main things that really happened was the Bloodline stuff, of course, as of most weeks, to be quite honest with you, on SmackDown. That is not to say SmackDown's a bad show. I'm just saying, like, nothing really special happens on SmackDown besides the Bloodline, especially these past couple of weeks as we're headed towards Night of Champions. Really, I'm not really as excited for Night of Champions, but at the same time, I do expect that show to definitely be a banger of a show, especially with that tag team match happening for the Undisputed Tag Team Championships. It's going to be a great show nonetheless. Has the build been stagnant for this show? Absolutely. Nothing really special when it comes to the build for Night of Champions, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens in the near future as we head towards the pay-per-view. But again, SmackDown was a fine show. Nothing really special except for all of the Bloodline stuff. Of course, this show was also main evented by the Usos taking on the LWOs Santos, Escobar, and Rey Mysterio, with the Usos losing the match via interference from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and is a scenario in which the Usos next week are going to be falling in line. We're going to have to wait and see what happens, but nonetheless, this show is basically the Bloodline show. But before we get on with all this craziness regarding Friday Night SmackDown, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications, as well as the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Oh my God. Literally, I'm kind of tongue-tied right now. It's usually a common occurrence on most of my videos, but if you guys haven't checked out as well, the Monday Night Raw review is up on the channel. We talk about the road to Night of Champions continuing, in which we have AJ Styles and Seth Rollins going one-on-one for the World Heavyweight Championship at the pay-per-view. We're going to be talking about that show as well. Raw was a fine show nonetheless. Nothing really special happened on that show, but it was a fine show, to be quite honest with you. But if you guys haven't checked out the Raw review, the link will be in the description below. Plus, the AEW Dynamite review is up on the channel, and we talk about Hangman Page returning to help the Elite against the Blackpool Combat Club, setting up Anarchy in the arena at Double or Nothing. So it's official. It's going to be the Elite versus the Blackpool Combat Club in Anarchy in the arena at Double or Nothing. A lot of matches for Double or Nothing has been announced this week. A lot of matches. Double or Nothing is looking to be stacked, so I'm definitely excited about that. But if you guys haven't checked out the AEW Dynamite review, the link will also be in the description below. All right, let's get on with SmackDown. Overall, again, SmackDown was the Bloodline show, and to kick off SmackDown, who else should kick off SmackDown besides Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman kicking off the show? Columbia, South Carolina, says Roman Reigns. acknowledge me. And immediately what happens is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn come out. Of course, the crowd is pro Sami Zayn. And he says, well, this is perfect. They seem excited. Well, this was his plan all along because there are two things to do, and they can accomplish both of them right now. Columbia already did it. Now it's their turn to acknowledge the tribal chief. After they do that, they can drop off their titles and drop themselves out. And then what happens is Kevin Owens gets the mic, and he drops the belts and the mic, and Roman kind of looks surprised. He says, figures, fight Owens, fight. You know, that's his new motto. He just wants to fight all the time. They don't want to talk to him anyways. Roman wants to talk to Sami, and Sami alone. And what happens is that he had a special career, that being Roman Reigns, and he says he experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But he has one regret, and that one regret is wasting his life on Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn then immediately replies, and he says he has one regret too, and that regret is not blasting him with that chair way sooner. They have been in the ring since Montreal. They thought they would never get the shot until they tell him everything he wanted to say. Now that he is finally standing here, he has absolutely nothing to say to him except this. His whole life, he's been privileged. He's gotten everything that he has wanted, and now he wants the tag team championships. And now at Night of Champions, he is not going to get them. And do you want to know why? It's because he is just not as good as them. For that matter, he is not as good as the Usos either. That was a great line by Sami Zayn. After that one line saying that, hey, Roman, you are not as good as the Usos, Roman then proceeds to laugh. And he asks Sami, that's how you feel, huh? That's that one feeling you have. And, you know, he took it easy on him. He gave him an opportunity after opportunity, and then Roman just goes on a rant on Sami Zayn. But what happens is, out of nowhere, the Usos come in from behind and attack Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So then they come in the ring. The Usos do their typical handshake, and Jimmy actually turns towards Roman, and it looks like Jimmy wants to give a handshake to Roman, but Roman ain't having all the kiss ass, and Roman is absolutely pissed off. And he walks off. So he just goes on a rant and says, this is my ring. Why are you here? Get out of here. And Roman gets so pissed that he manages to walk off. And he walks off from the Usos, and he accidentally bumps into Solo Sikoa. And then Solo Sikoa looks at him, and Roman looks at Solo with regret, basically kind of like showing you the facial expression of, oh shit, I fucked up, I'm sorry. And then Roman ends up leaving. Once we're back from commercial break, Roman is backstage with the rest of the Bloodline, and Roman is just pissed off. He's on a tirade, and Roman says, this is us. Who runs the Bloodline? Who is the quarterback? Why are they doing random stuff out there? Who gave a good portion of life to that fool? And he had something to say today. They wanted to do what they wanted to do. They make these choices, but let's be real here. I make the choices here. I kept him in the promised land. And he talks about how he's not a tag team guy, and he tells the Usos to get out now. And then the Usos leave. What are my thoughts on this opening segment for SmackDown? I think it's a clear indication that the Usos are 100% in the doghouse after this. And it really all started last week when Roman talked about the Usos losing at WrestleMania and basically declaring himself and Solo Sikoa to wrestle Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens at Night of Champions. Now, the thing about this is, again, this is all setting up to a greater story. I've been saying this since WrestleMania. There's a greater story to be told with the Bloodline, and that story is the crumbling and the downright inner tension with the Bloodline, and that is exactly what we are seeing here. Not only with just the Usos, but it looks like they're starting to tease Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns having a little bit of tension as well, which I absolutely love to see, because then it makes the match at Night of Champions way more interesting. Now, do I see it being a situation in which Roman and Solo end up beating Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for the tag team championships? Honestly, I do not know. I honestly do not want to see Roman holding 4 belts. I think that's absolutely ludicrous, in my opinion, because then if Roman and Solo end up winning the tag team titles, yes, you can set up the Usos versus Roman and Solo, but if you really think about it, shouldn't Solo later on in this story kind of team up with the Usos? Honestly, the story can go many different ways, but also if Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn drop the titles, what is the direction going to be with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn going forward, since they are now a part of the Raw brand and the Raw brand only? Maybe a feud with Judgment Day. We're going to have to wait and see. What is WWE going to be doing with the tag team championships? Are they going to be splitting up the tag team championships once again, since they're 100% full-fledged going back to the brand split and really being strict with the brand split? Let's be honest, they're really not. But again, are they going to be splitting the tag team titles? Are they going to have a fuck finish? We have absolutely no idea. There are many different possibilities that this story can go. But if there's one thing that I absolutely love, especially with the Bloodline, is that, number one, Roman knows how to get a lot of other people over. I mean, he's gotten Jey over. He's gotten Sami over. He has gotten Solo over. Roman is an over magnet. Like, everywhere Roman Reigns touches, he immediately puts over. And, you know, what I mean by that is the audience has that sheer connection to them. For example, the audience loves connecting to Jey now, and they basically connected to Jey ever since, you know, the feud that Jey and Roman had ever since Roman turned heel. But now it's much different ever since Sami Zayn came into the picture, and now everybody is starting to feel for the Usos, especially for Jey Uso, because we all know what eventually will happen to the Usos later on down the line. So literally, Roman has the ability to just get a lot of people over. But again, many different possibilities with this story, and one of the things that I really like about the Bloodline is that it creates that unpredictability element, but also it creates that situation and it keeps you invested and wants to make you tune in the next week. That is something that the Bloodline is just that is something that the Bloodline are just absolute masters of, in my opinion. But that was a great opening segment nonetheless. In our first match of the evening, we have the Brawling Brutes consisting of Butch, that being Pete Dunne, and Ridge Holland, take on the called-up tag team from NXT, Pretty Deadly, consisting of Kit Wilson and Elton Prince. What are my thoughts on Pretty Deadly? They're really good wrestlers. I'm not really that big of a fan of the gimmick, but they're definitely going to be growing on me. I'm not really the biggest NXT watcher because I think, honestly, there's no point in watching that show, but I digress. Overall, this was not a bad match whatsoever. It pretty much made sense that Pretty Deadly was going to get the win. I mean, it would be really stupid for you to call up a tag team from NXT and immediately have them lose in their first match on the main roster. So it made total sense for Pretty Deadly to get the win. It sucks that it had to be against Butch and Ridge Holland, but whatever, it is what it is. Butch and Kit Wilson start. Butch is in control, but then Elton Prince makes the tag. We get a double team attempt by Pretty Deadly, but then both get caught into a double stomp onto their hands by Butch. After that, Ridge Holland tags in. We then get a dropkick by Butch onto the face of Prince, and then Holland picks him up. He then hits a delayed vertical suplex. After that, Kit Wilson ends up going for the blind tag, and then Kit hits the DDT on Ridge Holland. Once we're back from break, Pretty Deadly is in control. We get a double team attempt by Pretty Deadly on Ridge Holland. We then get a crossbody and a leg drop combination by Pretty Deadly. After that, Elton Prince goes for the cover, and he goes for the 1 count. After that, Holland fights back on Prince. Holland ends up going for a furious pounce on Prince. After that, Wilson makes the tag. He doesn't let Ridge Holland make the tag to Butch. After that, Wilson ends up going for a sleeper hold. Holland makes the tag. At this point, Butch is legal. We get the enziguri on Prince and then on Wilson. Then Prince goes for the German suplex, and then he goes for a German on Wilson. We then get an enziguri by Butch, but then he goes for an enziguri on Wilson. He drives his knees on Prince, but then he drops down Wilson to the mat. He runs into a boot by Wilson, but then he goes to the top, but then Butch goes for the enziguri. Butch ends up going to the top, but then he hits repeated rights on Wilson. He then gets pushed off, but then Ridge makes the tag. He picks up Prince, and then he picks up Wilson, and then he drops them both down at the same time, which looked fucking sick. And then they both hit the double 10 beats of the Bowering. Prince that gets caught on with the ropes, and then Pretty Deadly ends up hitting the, I forgot what this move is called, the split milk. It's what it's called. Split milk on Rich Holland, and we get a cover, and Pretty Deadly end up getting the win over the Brawling Brutes. Overall thoughts on this match, honestly, again, Pretty Deadly is going to take a little bit for me to get used to. They're fantastic wrestlers, but I'm not really that big of a fan of the gimmick. Now, granted, they could possibly get over with this gimmick. So, honestly, if they end up getting really over with the main roster audience, let's be real here. I mean, they could be considered a success, but I definitely do see a bright future ahead for them on the main roster. After that, we get a tribute package of the late superstar Billy Graham, who unfortunately passed away. He was basically one of one of the first, if not the first, flamboyant wrestlers. He's the man of the hour, the man with the power too sweet to be sour. It sucks that we end up losing superstar Billy Graham, so my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Zelina versus Asuka. A lot of people ended up laughing when this match was first announced, but, overall wasn't a bad match. Zelina ended up getting offense, but, as soon as they announced this match, you pretty much knew who the hell was going to be winning this match. Of course, Asuka is going to set herself into a rematch against Bianca Belair from WrestleMania at Night of Champions, in which Bianca Belair is going to be defending her Raw Women's Championship. Yes, a SmackDown superstar holding the Raw Women's Championship. Again, this is so stupid that WWE literally just does not know what they're doing with both of these women's championships. This is always the case with the draft, man. These people all the time end up putting themselves in corners that they do not want to be in. And unfortunately, this is one of those instances. You literally have Rhea Ripley, exclusive to Raw, as the SmackDown Women's Champion, and Bianca Belair, who is exclusive to SmackDown, being the Raw Women's Champion. What the fuck are we doing here? Zelina and Asuka, the match starts. We get a roll-up immediately by Zelina, and then we get a kick to the side of the face of Asuka. After that, we get a roll-up by Zelina, and then we get a near fall. We then get a dropkick onto the back of Asuka, but then Zelina misses the 619 attempt. Of course, that is Rey Mysterio's move. We then get a kick to the chest of Zelina, but then Asuka manages to pick her up. She then drops Zelina to the top of the announce table. After that, once we're back from commercial break, Asuka is in control. We then get a right hand by Zelina, and then Zelina ends up going for a dropkick on Asuka, but then we get a drop toe hold on the middle rope. After that, Zelina manages to hit the 619 on Asuka. Zelina goes to the top, and then she ends up hitting the Meteora. We then get a cover and a near fall. We then get a bunch of roll-up reversals by both, but then Asuka manages to catch Zelina. But then Zelina ends up reversing Asuka and going for a roll-up, and then we get a near fall. But then Asuka catches Zelina once again, and Asuka manages to apply the Asuka lock, and Zelina taps out, and Asuka holds on to the Asuka lock because she is now a heel. And that leads to Bianca Belair to come out, and Asuka retreats. After that, Asuka comes back, and she spits once again, using her miss into the face of Bianca Belair. But Bianca Belair, she didn't get all of Bianca Belair, unlike the way she did on Monday on Raw. I believe it was last week. But this is a continuation of the build for their match at Night of Champions. A match that I'm honestly not really much looking forward to. Do I see Asuka winning? Maybe, but we're just going to have to wait and see what they do in the future. After that, we got the Grayson Waller effect. If there's one thing that I do not like WWE for, it's their overabundance of their freaking talk show segments. I despise talk show segments, and that is because of the fact that WWE just loves their talk show segments. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think it's absolutely fucking cheesy, and this is no different with Grayson Waller. Now, I'm not going to sit here and immediately bash Grayson Waller. I think Grayson Waller is a fantastic wrestler, and he's a fantastic promo, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that Grayson Waller does comes off as forced. A lot of the stuff that I've seen from NXT, I don't watch a lot of NXT, but the shit that I've seen when it comes to Grayson Waller, again, way too forced. They're trying to get a lot of people talking, but again, it just sounds too forced to the point where the viewer's just whatever. I mean, everybody knows this shit's not real anyway. But that is not to say Grayson Waller is bad. I just feel like Grayson Waller, tries a little too hard to the point where he doesn't really sound as genuine as he should be. That's my opinion. And that is the case with a lot of wrestlers, not only in WWE, but in AEW as well. So he welcomes us to the first ever Greyson Waller effect on Friday Night SmackDown. And what a treat. He gets started, and his guest, he will face Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. And his guest is AJ Styles, somebody that he has a short history with because I believe they kind of feuded and they kind of brawled on Raw last year. And I believe AJ Styles went down to NXT to kind of face Greyson Waller, I believe. AJ Styles comes out and, he talks about how this isn't their first encounter. And Greyson talks about how he told him something in NXT that he tried being phenomenal for 10 plus years. And he is right. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and at Night of Champions, he can add more to his accolades. AJ Styles has been out with an injury, and all he can think about was getting back in it. He talks about how he trained so hard, and at some point there was an opportunity at a shot of being the World Heavyweight Champion, and he wants it more than the air he breathes. And Greyson Waller says he has goosebumps, but Seth is on a movie set, and he's happy for him. But surely he's exercising that so he could be ready because he assures him, as the heart beating his chest, he is. Greyson then says that it's the match he is looking most forward to at Night of Champions, and he's looking forward to the ending. And new World Heavyweight Champion, Seth freaking Rollins. AJ gets pissed, both face off, and the segment ends. This was basically a nothing segment. Nothing really special happened to this. Of course, they're probably teasing a future program with AJ Styles and Greyson Waller. That is exactly what I see here. Do I honestly want to see that? No. A lot of fans are actually creating the scenario of AJ Styles potentially winning the World Heavyweight Championship. And honestly, a lot of the scenarios that I hear are actually not bad because we all know AJ Styles is a SmackDown wrestler, and him winning a Raw Championship kind of doesn't really make any sense. But in the draft, one of the rules stated that there could be trades, and a lot of people were making the assumption that AJ Styles could win the World Heavyweight title and he could enter himself into a feud with Seth Rollins by getting traded to Raw, and in return, SmackDown ends up getting Cody Rhodes for SmackDown, and then maybe leading to SummerSlam, you can lead to Roman versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. That's what a lot of people are assuming. That is not a bad idea, but I honestly do not see that being the case. I definitely do see Seth Rollins entering in a feud with somebody else for the World Heavyweight title, since most likely he's going to be the guy that wins that championship. After that, we got the Street Profits versus LA Knight and Rick Boogs. Of course, this is the first time that LA Knight and Rick Boogs are teaming together. Ford and Boogs start. Boogs no-sells Ford. He then catches Ford, and then he goes for a bench press on Ford. And then he drops Ford into the corner. He lands on his feet. Dawkins then tags in. We get a shoulder tackle by Boogs, but then Boogs picks up Dawkins. He treats him like weight, but after that, he hits a follow-away slam. LA Knight tags himself in. We get a double team by both Knight and Boogs, but then LA Knight goes for a slam on Dawkins. He then hits an elbow on Dawkins, and then we get a cover and near fall, but then Ford makes the tag. After that, he goes to the top, and then he hits the crossbody. After that, we get a clothesline on LA Knight, and then we get a thrust kick on Boogs, and then an enziguri. After that, Knight gets taken on to the apron, and then Ford goes for the enziguri once again. Boogs then accidentally knocks LA Knight to the outside, but then Ford ends up hitting a somersault on the outside. Dawkins then goes for the spine buster. Ford tags in, and he hits the frog splash, and then we get a cover, and the Street Profits end up getting the win. And then after the match, LA Knight picks up Rick Boogs, and what happens is LA Knight ends up giving Rick Boogs the BFT, so it looks like LA Knight is going to be on his own for the time being, which is the right decision to make because LA Knight should not be in any tag team whatsoever. If there's one guy that could potentially win Money in the Bank this year, it's honestly a guy like LA Knight, because LA Knight is what you call a certified main eventer. He has the look, he has the charisma, he has the promo skills, he literally has everything. Another thing about LA Knight is that this guy is super fucking over with the crowd. Let me talk to you. Yeah. Like, I'm a big fan of LA Knight. He's fucking awesome, and he's completely entertaining. He's everything the WWE would love in a wrestler, if that makes any sense. That's why LA Knight is so special. And not only that, he's definitely perfectly fit for the world title scene, maybe the World Heavyweight Championship title scene, but we all know the world title is exclusive to Raw and LA Knight is on SmackDown. I thought LA Knight getting drafted to SmackDown was the wrong decision to make. I think it should have been much better for a guy like LA Knight to get drafted to Raw, because then you could enter, yourself into a feud with a guy like Seth Rollins for the world title. So stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. Cameron Grimes, in a backstage interview, talks about how he feels like he is living a dream, and he's not going to stop him from going straight to the top, and he wants to go to the moon. We got the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn versus two jobbers. They end up hitting a combination with a Russian leg sweep for the win. So, great. After that, we get a backstage interview with Raquel Rodriguez. It was actually some breaking news. They actually had to relinquish their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships because Liv Morgan got injured. And then Raquel Rodriguez says that she isn't giving up and Liv isn't replaceable. Then Damage Control comes in and she blames Raquel on injuring Dakota and says that she should find a tag team partner for next week. Great. Nobody cares. We then get an Austin Theory segment. Of course, Austin Theory is the current United States champion. He says, coming to SmackDown last week, it was what he expected. He expected respect, and look at the list of legends he bodied. He was ganged up by two former world champions, Bobby Lashley and Sheamus, and he was trying to figure it out. He would have beaten Seth Rollins and became the new world heavyweight champion. And it's not a theory, it's a fact. Bobby Lashley gets it, and he follows him to SmackDown, and he's jealous. Sheamus, I just don't understand. He feels that they have a lot of things in common. They're tough, they're strong, and they both beat John Cena. But the only thing about beating John Cena is that he beat John Cena this year at WrestleMania, and he beat John Cena like 10 years ago, and he was like 13. Then what happens? Sheamus comes out. He faces off with Theory, and then he gets the mic, and what happens is Sheamus immediately ends up hitting the bro kick, and after that, Theory stands down, Sheamus stands tall, and Sheamus just picks up the mic and drops it down to the mat, really just setting up a program with Sheamus and Austin Theory. Honestly, this is not a bad idea. I think Sheamus being in a mid-card position right now is definitely the best thing for him. Honestly, it really does suck that Gunther is over on Raw and Sheamus is on SmackDown, because I really wanted that third one-on-one match with Gunther and Sheamus, because if you really think about it, they only had two one-on-one matches, of course, the first being that amazing match at Clash at the Castle, and their second match, I believe it was on the Go Home SmackDown before Extreme Rules. I still have that belief that the guy that should beat Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship is Sheamus. And what sucks is that Sheamus is on the opposite brand as Gunther, and it looks like Sheamus is not going to be going anywhere near Gunther anytime soon. So him going up against Austin Theory is definitely a wise choice in my opinion. Am I really excited for it? No, it's nothing really special, but it gives something for Austin Theory to do, and it also gives something for Sheamus to do at the end of the day. After that, the Usos are backstage. Paul Heyman comes in, and he says the tribal chief forgives them. And then Paul shakes the hand of Jimmy, and basically Jimmy and Jey ask Paul Heyman if Roman is going to be there. And Paul says, Roman, actually, he will not be there. And then Paul creates basically a million excuses, and they talk about how they have this victory, and please do not make that a prediction. Make that a spoiler, because out of all people, it's the LWO. You can get this W. So then we get to the Usos versus the LWOs, Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. This was a great match nonetheless. I absolutely loved this match. Every time when Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio are in the ring with a tag team in the caliber of the talent like the Usos, you're definitely going to get a bang for your buck. Now, granted, this is free television, but you're just going to get a banger-ass match. Of course, the big story is, of course, the Usos kind of being shafted by Roman Reigns, and this is kind of, in a way, their final test. it wasn't really officially their final test, but Roman definitely expected a W from the Usos, and the Usos did not get the win. But the match starts. Jey and Rey Mysterio start. Jey takes Rey into the corner. After that, Jimmy tags in. Jimmy's in control over Rey, but then Rey gets sent to the corner. We then get a kick by Jimmy, and then Rey regains control. Santos goes for the tag, but then Jimmy gets sent to the outside. Jey then goes to the outside, but then Rey manages to taunt Jimmy with the 619. Once we're back from commercial break, Jimmy is in control over Santos Escobar. Santos then fights back, but then Santos tries to tag in Rey Mysterio. Santos then gets sent into the corner, but then we get a roll-up by Jey, and then we get a near fall. Jey then tags in. We then get a right hand on Rey, who isn't the legal man. After that, Santos goes for the inside cradle, and we get a near fall. After that, we get a right hand by Jey, but then we get a cover and a near fall once again. We then get a back elbow by Jey, but then Jimmy tags in. We then get repeated rights on Santos into the corner, but then we get a running hip attack into the corner by Jimmy. Jimmy then runs into a knee by Sheamus, but then at this point, the hot tag is made. Rey goes after Jey. Rey hits the Hurricane Rana. Rey then is on the apron, or I should say Jey's on the apron. He goes to the top and he hits the senton. Springboard crossbody and a near fall. We get a kick by Jey, followed by a right hand. Rey goes for kicks of his own. Rey then goes for the Canadian Destroyer / Code Red. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. We get another kick by Rey on Jey Uso. Jimmy goes for a kick on Rey. After that, Jey goes for the neck breaker, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Both Usos pick up Rey Mysterio. Rey then goes for the knees on the Usos, but then both Usos get taken to the outside. After that, Santos Escobar tags in. Santos goes for the somersault onto the outside, but then he takes Jimmy back into the ring. Then Jimmy goes for the enziguri. We get a knee by Santos, but then we get a knee pin into the corner. After that, he takes Jimmy up, but then we get a Hurricane Rana by Santos Escobar. Santos goes for the cover and a near fall. Rey once again makes the tag. He ends up getting the leg drop, and we get a cover and a near fall when Jey interferes. Then Santos goes for the super kick, but then Jey gets taken to the outside. At this point, Jimmy is on the second rope, but then Jimmy hits a super kick, and then off the top, Jey goes for the Uso splash. We get a cover and a near fall. Jimmy tags in, but then both Usos go to the top. But what happens out of nowhere is Kevin Owens comes out. Santos goes, basically just takes out one of the Usos. Sami pushes Jimmy off the top. We get a Hurricane Rana by Rey Mysterio. Rey then follows up with the 619. We get a senton on Jey onto the outside, but then Santos manages to take out Jey, and we get a cover. And the LWO get the win over the Usos. So it looks like the Usos are once again in the doghouse. Overall thoughts on this match? I don't know, man. Things ain't looking good for the Usos. Again, very interesting developments that happened in this match. I think it was pretty safe to say that we kind of knew that the Usos were not going to be getting the win. But the look on Roman's face, man, he was just not happy. He had that disappointed look in his face. I don't know what the hell is going to be happening next week, but that is one of the things that I talked about this earlier in the review. One of the things that I really love about the Bloodline, and this is why they are master storytellers, is that they literally make you just so invested in what you're watching to the point where it just makes you want to tune in next week because you do not know what the fuck is going to be happening. And that is definitely going to be the case with the Usos. And could that be at Night of Champions, in which maybe we have a scenario in which the Usos cause Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa to lose against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? Now, if Roman and Solo Sikoa lose against Sami Zayn, it's pretty obvious who's going to get the pin, because there is no chance in hell, no pun intended, there's no way in hell that Roman Reigns is going to be taking the pinfall. This man is damn near 1,000 days as champion. There's no fucking way Roman Reigns is going to get pinned. If there's anybody that is probably, I'm not going to say should, but most likely is going to get pinned, it's definitely going to be Solo Sikoa, or this match may end in a fuck finish. We have absolutely no idea what the hell is going to be happening, but interesting developments happening when it comes to Roman Reigns, the Usos, and the Bloodline. As you can see right there, that is Roman's reaction to basically what happened with the Usos. I believe that was from the first backstage segment after the opening segment of the show, but still, it's crazy shit happening with the Bloodline. Of course, the Bloodline is crumbling from within, and honestly, I am definitely here for it. But that was my SmackDown review from May 19th, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show. This was a great show overall. Nothing really special really happened on the show. Bloodline stuff was really the main thing that happened, but nonetheless, it wasn't a bad show nonetheless. But yeah, that was SmackDown from May 19th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky Derez, signing out.